it's Alina Conley, and can you believe that it has been 5 years since I took on the huge adventure of becoming a full-time entrepreneur? I am ecstatic. I am so proud of myself, y'all. This has not been an easy journey, but it has been beyond worth it. So many life lessons. And so I get questions all the time around this particular subject. You know, when did you know it's the right time to leave? What were some of the things that you wish you would have known? How do you balance motherhood, being a wife, businesses? And so what we did was Prince and I came up with a cool idea where instead of me just straight talking to you guys and answering these questions, we kind of did it like interview style. So I pulled some of the questions from my community that people frequently ask, and then Prince added in some of his own questions, and we composed it into a really, really cool interview. We covered a lot of different topics. It's about an hour long, but it is my way of celebrating this huge milestone. This is going to be a great time capsule for me in 10, 20 years when I can look back and see how far I've come. But it was really fun kind of going over some things that were from my early days, with my days when I first wrote out my iPhone app, Girl Talk, why I've been with It Works so long, and how much longer do I plan on doing this. And so just a plethora of stuff that we talked about. So I want you guys to tune in now. So happy 5-year to me, and thank you guys for following me, being a part of this journey with me, believing in me, supporting me. It means the world to me. So enjoy.
So hello everyone. My name is Prince Conley. I'm here to interview my beautiful wife, Alina Conley. I think that it's such a milestone and such a great day as you've been, as of today, 5 years as an entrepreneur. So, you know, I just thought that, you know, everyone should know your story. I feel like I know your story, but, you know, a lot of people don't know your story. So, you know, first let's just, you know, talk through your journey and what were you doing 5 years ago?
Well, this is really exciting. I think that this was an awesome idea for us to sit down, because this journey definitely, you know, wouldn't have been what it is without you. So thank you for being a part of that. But okay, so 5 years ago, what was that? I would say that this 5-year journey and this 5-year mark of entrepreneurship started back really in 2012. So almost 6 years ago, a little bit in 2011. And basically I was living in New York City, as you know, and I was really just living my dream life. You know, I had always imagined living in the city, working some big fancy corporate job, and, you know, just doing my thing. And what ended up happening was I found myself in a position where I was getting ready to go to the next level of my career. So I was up for a promotion. And, you know, most people either go and get additional degrees, or they go to different areas or different industries. And for me, I just could not find anything at my company that I felt like was going to be the next step for me. Prior to deciding that I wanted to move on, I just kind of was in a place where I started to have a huge tug on my spirit, you know, something that just kept saying, like, you know, there's more out there. There's something that's aligned for this next level of living. And I was very, very intrigued by that constant pull. And so I decided that I wanted to explore it a little bit. I kind of knew what entrepreneurship was. I had seen my father do some entrepreneurial things, and I knew that it was something that interested me, but I wasn't really sure what that looked like for me. I knew I had a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I wanted to uncover, but how? And so one of my favorite quotes is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I felt like in my spirit I was ready for something new, and things just kind of started falling in my lap. Right. So that's when, you know, it just so happened that one of my best friends, Melissa Butler, reached out to me, and I wouldn't even say reached out to me. We were just literally in my apartment talking life, and she decided that she wanted to pursue some of her entrepreneurial ventures. She was just like, oh, I think I'm gonna quit my job and go and make soap. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what's up. And if anybody knows Melissa, you know, you just kind of always go with it, because she's a free spirit, but she's also a hard worker. And a few months later, she came back and was like, so I'm not making soap anymore, but I am making lipstick, and I want you to be a part of my team. So I was elated to support my friend in this venture. But that was actually a pinnacle moment in my life as an entrepreneur, because it was my first time actually seeing entrepreneurship firsthand.
Right.
So seeing someone take something that was just a conversation and turn it into a real business. And, you know, night after night, we would be with her as she was starting this company, and it lit a fire in me that I never wanted to see go out. You know, it was kind of one of those things where the passion that she had and the passion that I had for what was brewing, I never got that at my job. You know, as excited as it was, as, you know, privileged as I felt in that role, I still did not have that same flame. And, you know, to have an experience like that and then just go back to work and be like, oh, well, let me just do my work, put my head down, work hard, and climb my way up the ladder, it just felt very uncomfortable. You know, it was just very uncomfortable. And so I was very inspired by that experience to take all of those notes and ideas that I had and actually go and turn them into something. What that something was, I don't know. So we were working on the lip bar. I had started working on my first iPhone app with Maya. I think that was a time that I actually met you in 2012.
I swooped in.
You swooped in. And, you know, I hadn't really done much in my social life at all. You know, like I wasn't dating, I wasn't going out to eat. We were literally just working on the lip bar and Girl Talk for at least 6 months. Nothing else. You know, it was just a routine, like work, gym, eat, work on these side hustles, and do it again. And that day that the weather broke in April and we decided to go on that cookout, that was the first time that I had actually just like come up for air. Because I was very focused on getting these off the ground, because I had set a date, and really all of us, me, Maya, Melissa, we were like, let's give it a year, you know, and if business is starting to boom and things look like they're, you know, going upward, regardless of if we actually are making money from our businesses yet, we're going to set a date and leave. So my date was March 29th. But then I actually end up completely having to leave a little early. So March 27th is the official day where I just kind of like took that leap. So.
Right. Well, 5 years later.
5 years later.
So when you first started as an entrepreneur, like what were your goals, and how have they changed in those 5 years?
Well, I think that for me, I was in a space where I actually loved the space that I was in 2012 and 2013, because I was so fearless. You know, it was an attitude that it just kind of felt like it's only up from here. And so I had really big goals. Some of them were naive. Some of them I wish I could get back now, because I was just so fearless. But some of the goals that I had leaving was, you know, I wanted to see my iPhone app be at the top of the charts. I wanted to travel the world. At the time, we were thinking about moving to LA and being a part of like this entire like Silicon Valley situation. And I just wanted to see where that was going to take me. I think that I call myself a product of the movie Eat, Pray, Love, because that was what I wanted to see. You know, I wanted to create a life for myself that felt very free, but felt very fulfilling. So meaning I was doing meaningful work that paid well. You know, that was my goal. And when I decided to embark upon entrepreneurship, you know, I was single. I didn't have any kids, and so the things that I wanted to see were very different than the things that matter to me now. So I think 5 years later, the biggest thing for me has been holding on to that fearlessness when I had setting goals, and bringing that into my goal setting now. And so the reason why I say that is because when you don't know how things are going to go, you know, a lot of times you're just like, I can do anything, which is still absolutely true, but then along your journey you end up having setbacks, right? So I had several setbacks over the 5 years, you know, rejection, no's, failed businesses, and sometimes that can cloud your vision or jade your outlook on where you can go. And so sometimes I wish that I woke up as naive and as excited as I was in 2012 about how fast my money was going to come and how my app was going to blow up, because it was a mental state of true abundance. Right. I think now my goals are a little different because I just know how to set them better. So I think that when it comes to goal setting for me, I try not to set too many goals in 1 year. That's something that I've done in the past where I'll say, okay, I want to do this, and this, all in 365 days. And when you really think about building a brand, building a business, building a life, creating a family, building a home, getting married, all of these things, some of these things alone can take, you know, multiple years. Right. And so I think that for young entrepreneurs, it's about being able to create a vision that is big, and then breaking it down into segments that make sense. I know that right now that has given me so much flexibility, because now I have 5-year goals. You know, it's not, oh, I have to have this done by December 31st. It's, okay, I'm building a brand, I'm building a platform, and this is where I'd like to see it in 5 years. In year 1, this is the goal. I want to have, you know, this many listeners on my podcast, or I want to have this many people a part of my community, or I want to bring, you know, so many people into my business. So it's kind of taking that 5-year goal, breaking it down, and then aligning it with my lifestyle. So when you talk about how does that look different 5 years later, now my goals are not just Lenas goals, you know. Me and you have to goal set together. Right. You know, I have to incorporate what that looks like for my children. I like to incorporate what that looks like for my relationships with my mom, my friends. And I don't think that I did that in goal setting 5 years ago. You know, it was just kind of like, oh, I'm just out here living. I'm gonna work all day, work all night, play whenever I want to. Whereas now, it's kind of about alignment. So, you know, as I do create this vision, it's like, what kind of business or what kind of model is going to allow me to have the type of life that I want when it comes to balancing my family, right? And so, you know, I always tell people, you can't say that you want to create a $1 billion empire that's going to have, you know, 400 or 500 employees, but yet you also want to work from the beach. You know, and you don't want to be tied to an office. Those two don't align. You know, 9 times out of 10, if you're going to create a $1 billion brand that has all these employees, you're going to need to be in the office at least the first couple of years to create a culture. You know, so if you're saying that you want to really work from the beach, you know, 5-6 months out the year, then maybe having a company that isn't based around so many employees and the structure isn't for you. And so those are the things that I've had to think about as I think of, you know, the growth of my businesses and the scalability of the things that I'm working on is, will I still be able to go to my son's soccer games? You know, will I be able to go to church every Sunday with my family? You know, will this keep me away? And kind of creating a life that balances what's important to me, which frankly 5 years later just isn't a life consumed with work. It's a life that's primarily consumed with love, family, and relationships, but on the back end, I'm doing something that gives me the flexibility to do that.
Right. Oh, you said something that was interesting as far as for, you know, getting to Parker's soccer games or, you know, other family activities and stuff like that. So with having such a busy schedule, how do you go about planning your days out? Or, you know, what does your everyday schedule look like?
That's a good question. So I have been a mom. Well, I'm saying this to you, but you know, we've been parents for 3 years.
Tell me they have mom.
We've been parents for 3 years, and 3 years later, I still don't have that area of my life mastered. I definitely think that I've gotten a lot better with it in terms of creating balance in work and life. But if anybody, you know, follows me or has listened to any of my coaching sessions, the word balance is real finicky for me. You know, I think that balance is something that's thrown out there, but can be defined for different people differently. And so it's kind of going back to the type of life that you want, right? So for me, my business works in seasons. And so I'm able to create balance for myself by knowing that certain seasons, different things in my life have more of a priority, and that they equally balance out, right? So if family is a priority, work is a priority, spiritual life, whatever, we have all these things that are priorities. But to think that you are going to be 100% in every area every single day, I think is irrational. You know, like, you know, if I'm out doing, if we're in busy season with It Works, for example, I may be gone every Friday and Saturday hosting events. You know, so on Fridays and Saturdays, am I 100% in mommy and wife world? Probably not, because my kids don't see me, you don't see me. But I may be 100% at work at that moment in time. And when we think about it, you know, focusing in on that segment of time where it's the busy season, the most opportunity for revenue is created in the spring and summer, then it makes sense for me to prioritize that so that we have the option to then bring in that family life, right? So then that means when the summer months come along, I'm able to lean in more to the things that I want to do with my family. So maybe we're traveling more, maybe we're doing more stuff on the weekend. But I think that because of the way that we prioritize business in the first half of the year, we have the luxury of doing that versus having a slave all year long and then having no time for quote unquote balance. Right. I think that day to day, or week to week rather, that's kind of how I organize my thoughts, right? So like I literally will list out the different segments of my life. So I have self-care, which just has anything to do with me, from getting my nails done to getting my hair done to even just spiritual time that I set aside every day. So I have one bucket that's called self-care / personal. Then I have another bucket that's called family. And that has anything to do with what's going on with Parker. Does he have any appointments? What's going on with Alicia? When do I need to grocery shop? You know, anything that has to do with the kids. And then I also have, you know, mom and wife are kind of the same category right now. And so it'll be like, do I have my date night schedule? Or, you know, are there certain things that Chris and I want to do that, you know, in terms of the house? So like I may put to-dos that have to do with us in that bucket. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of it is pretty much business. And then those buckets are broken down based on various projects or based on the different companies that I work with. And from there, I then assign days and times, because I have to get specific, because you know, like I would be crazy. And so I'll pull everything from that list and say, okay, where does this go? Where does this get fulfilled? Right. And what can actually be scratched off?
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit to you know, well, let's go back to when I actually first met you, when you were all about the lip bar, girl talk, and me. And so you were very passionate about both. Can you talk about your experience?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because 5 years later, a lot of people that I partner with now or work with don't even remember that phase of my life. There are a lot of people who have been on Instagram since 2012 and, you know, kind of saw the countdown to me exiting from corporate America and remember that. But once upon a time,
you're such an early adapter. Instagram 2012.
I know, I was one of the first. But you know, that was a very instrumental time in my life. As I mentioned earlier, it was the first time that I really got a taste of entrepreneurship. But it was probably to date, if not the second most hardest working phase in my life. Particularly with Girl Talk, and that's because it was my first time doing something just like from the ground up, from scratch, from literally like sketch designs to, you know, it actually being approved in the Apple Store and getting downloads. And so I was very passionate about it because, number one, it was something that I wholeheartedly was, you know, into. I personally feel like Girl Talk was ahead of its time because so many things have come after it. But you know, with Girl Talk, basically we were one of the first, if not the first, iPhone apps that offered diversity in emojis. So, you know, a lot of times, I mean, this was right around the time where most people didn't even have iPhones yet. A lot of people were still switching over from BlackBerry Messenger. Woo! I feel like I'm dating myself, but, you know, and so it was to the point where people were literally typing out, you know, flips hair or talk to the hand, things that are actually emojis now, and stickers and emojis and, you know, all the things that are out there. Girl Talk was one of the first platforms that had expressions of multicultural women. And so, you know, at the time, Apple didn't really allow you to do customized emojis. It wasn't something that they allowed within their bylaws, and so we had to create a workaround. So that experience taught me so much, you know, and it's something that a lot of times I bring myself back to those days because, first of all, it was work ethic, right? So, you know, I would leave work, go to the gym, because you got to go to the gym in New York. You know, everybody's physically fit. And so those were the things, that's what you do. You go to work and you go to work out, right? So then after that, I would go to Melissa's house. She lived like a block from me. We would work on the lip bar. And then I would go home and then I work on Girl Talk. And I then would probably get like 2 to 3 hours of sleep before I had to get up and actually talk about whatever I had worked on with my developer, because my developer was in India, so we had to merge time zones, right? So as he was getting off work, I was waking up, and I was having to wake up at 5 every morning to go over things that me and Maya had discussed the night before about it. Yeah, it was a very brutal time in my life, but it's so crazy thinking about it because I can barely, you know, get out of bed and get Alicia nowadays. But I was just a hungry first-time entrepreneur that was just determined to just like make this happen because I knew that it could be amazing, you know. We worked with some great people to bring it to life, but we also had some failed partnerships. I can count on my hand 2 or 3 people who still owe me money. All right, some people that didn't give me designs. Even my developer, you know, ended up just kind of bouncing on me. You know, like they came back and we were trying to get some updates done, and it would be like, oh, such and such went and got married, he hasn't returned yet, and this went on for like 2 or 3 months. So here we have signed this contract and we're ready to push it out there, and we push it out there, but we need things fixed, right. You know, and the person that knows all the code, you know, for Girl Talk just has gone missing, okay? You know, me and Maya lost, I want to say it had to be almost 10 grand on a consultant, right? So this is one of the things that I talk about on the coaching on my podcast, The Reminder Remedy. The saying is, everything you need is everything you got. A lot of times when you're starting a business, you think about every single thing that you need to make this happen. You're willing to spend all this money because you feel like you need someone to tell you this, you need to understand that. And instead of doing the legwork yourself, you hire people, and it's a failed situation because the way that I operate now is, every business that I run, I want to understand how to do it. You know, I want to be able to bring it to life myself if I had to, so that, you know, worst case scenario, you know, I can always like depend on myself. Right. You know, and with that venture, I just didn't have that. You know, I was working full time, so there was a lot of outsourcing early on that allowed us to lose a lot of money. Now, do I believe in outsourcing? Absolutely, but I think that as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of stuff that you can learn online so that you can avoid upfront costs. So basically, this consulting company told us, hey, we'll basically put together this whole process document where basically you can go and shop your app around to any developer and they'll be able to read this 20-page document and put it right together. And when I tell you that we probably like would send that to people and they'll be like, okay, but I still need wireframes and I still need this and I still need that. We did not get $10,000 worth. You know, it was a true rookie move. So it was that. We had a designer that, you know, was great at designing but had no experience in user interface or iOS or Android, any of that stuff. So just knowing the people that you need to know and the resources that you have, and doing a little more research, you know, I think that for me it was definitely a learning experience, and it was one of the best moments in my life, to be completely honest, looking back, because we screwed up so bad. Like, we screwed up so bad, but it was still so good. You know, it still got to the marketplace. There were still people that loved it. And I met a lot of people. I learned a lot. We earned a lot of money doing pitch competitions. But ultimately, you know, I think that it comes to a point where as a business owner, you have to really identify, you know, when you are, you know, having to move on to the next thing, you know, and taking the experience for what it was, move on to the next thing, you know, particularly if you know, are starting to drain all of your cash, all of your savings, you know, maybe it's not right now, you know, maybe there is some iteration of Girl Talk that, you know, is to be determined, but I think that experience set me up for success in what came next.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm thinking about it now. I was actually at a couple of the pitches you guys had, and I could see that you guys were learning a lot from the last ones that you were going to, and looking at you now, as far as being able to speak in front of people and pitch your business is pretty remarkable.
Thank you, baby.
Giving out all these compliments. So from Girl Talk and Lip Bar, you took a little bit of a different route. You went to direct sales. So why did you take that route versus a traditional business/small business?
Well, that's a good question, because sometimes I ask myself the same thing, and I think that that's probably the most frequently asked question slash insult, because so many people will say, oh, you're better than this, you're better than It Works, you should be doing your own branded thing. And, you know, even I probably thought that, you know, in the beginning I was what I would call an undercover rap girl. And what's funny, you know, probably the biggest lesson in entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship also being a microcosm for just life in general, is that we can literally decide how we want life to look, and then God will say, meh, you know, that's cool, but that's not really what I have for you. And so a lot of times you'll hear people say, you know, I didn't find It Works found me, and that was absolutely the case. You know, looking back, because there was no reason why I should have ended up in this company. You know, I didn't know anyone. I hadn't tried any products. It was literally a random swipe on Instagram and a very quick decision that didn't have a lot of thought into it, that ended up being a complete shift in my life. And looking back now, you know, having been 5 years that I have not had to work a 9 to 5, okay? 5 years that I have, you know, gone from quitting my job, liquidating my 401k, living in my mama's house, ready to just grind it out, to within 5 months of me being in this opportunity, replacing the income that I was making with all of my degrees in New York. So, you know, I always tell people that I feel like It Works was a blessing. It was God's way of honoring my faith walk, because it was a true faith walk. You know, 2012, people that know my story know that 2012 for me was all about discovering my purpose and my passion, but also just getting that mental strength, that faith-based strength in place. And for doing that, I was able to leave and not look back, and then I had this opportunity fall in my lap. Why have I stuck with direct sales so long? Well, first of all, I I don't think that I would be who I am today without this business opportunity. Prior to joining this company, I worked off of, I guess, personal willpower, if you were to say, you know, when I think about those sleepless nights and, you know, working on this and like, it was just a constant grind, you know. It was just like, you know, work hard, work pays off, but there was like no grace. There was no asking what's next for me, you know. It was just kind of like I had this faith in this relationship, but I never really asked God, what is it that you want from me? How do you want these businesses to use me to serve you? Right. And it wasn't until I became a team leader that God completely stripped me of everything that I identify myself with. So if I think about like 2012, like you could go on Instagram and be like, girl, you was a whole different situation. And you know, in all honesty, there are so many elements of my personality that are still there, but I do not identify with them, right? So for example, my career, that was a big part of my identity. You know, I was proud of it. Yes, I work on Wall Street. Yes, I work at one of the top investment banking firms. You know, yes, I'm at this party and that party and I live in New York. My lifestyle was my identity, you know, and I became consumed with it. It was something that, you know, it was kind of like even on my worst days, I didn't want to show, oh, maybe this isn't the life for me, because it was what I identified as making me cool. You know, you live in New York, you got this swanky job, you're making all this money, blah, blah, blah. You know, now, you know, it puts you on this pedestal, right? But at night, I was very unfulfilled in my job. You know, I was, you know, barely keeping up with my bills, even, you know, because it was expensive to live in New York. So it was like this dichotomy between the appearance and what was really happening. Say that, you know, with this opportunity, I just feel like there were a lot of things that I needed to see about myself, but I also needed the experience of working with other people to see the value that blessing someone else does for building your character, right? So in a healthy way. I think that for me, the business, you know, it's very fulfilling, you know, and it teaches you the basic principles of entrepreneurship without the overhead. And so it's been a dope experience that I wish more people understood. I think that, you know, a lot of times people shun it because, you know, there's a lot of mystery around whatever it is and how money is made and
ignorance.
How, you know, and how you can, you know, make that kind of money.
Right.
You know, so much money doing that. But I think that my personality, like you said, is an early adopter. So I thought, you know, how hard could it be? And then it ended up being very hard. You know, it's a simple model, but it's very hard because of what it takes, what it requires of you as an individual, who it requires you to become. You have to become a self-serving, a servant leader, okay? And you have to eliminate self, you know? So that was a complete change in the environment, because I came from Wall Street where it's very cutthroat. Right. You know, and it's not, oh, hold out a hand to your next man. And so this business model, it just brought a human element to my life that did not exist before, right, and left me a newborn person with a lot of business acumen, a lot of relationships that have impacted my ability to be a leader. But you know, obviously financially it's been a great way for me to not have to beg people for money for other businesses, right? So like even with Girl Talk, having to pitch and talk to sharks, that was overwhelming for me, and it was a lot, you know, whereas now I can fund my own dreams because of the business model that, you know, I stuck with.
Okay. So what do you attribute your success to? What habits have helped you make you successful?
Well, I think that going back to that 2012 stint, you know, it was completely mental for me to make that leap. And I think that that still contributes to my success. Right. You know, I firmly believe that whatever I touch is going to turn into gold. Now, do I feel like that every single day? No. You know, just last week I could barely get out of bed because my thoughts had taken me captive. I get in a place sometimes where I I have so much stuff that I want to do that it paralyzes me, you know, and some call that fear, some call that anxiety. I don't know what I call it. But what I will say is that I have some mental routines, exercises very similar to physical exercises that keep me from falling off the deep end and keep me motivated. You know, and they give me confidence and they give me creativity. And I think that, you know, that's what I would definitely attribute to my success. It's just that belief, you know, it's that belief that, you know, the impossible can happen, because I've seen the impossible happen so many times. You know, I think that, you know, work ethic is a big part of it too. But the places where I'm going and the next level living that I'm trying to accomplish cannot be done on work ethic alone, you know, and that's been something that I had to learn through my experiences, that you have to leave room for God-sized miracles in your plans. You know, and so my success is me knowing that up until a certain point it will be Alina, and it'll be my work ethic and my consistency and my thoughts and blah blah blah, but having the faith that this other huge gap that I really can't do alone, I'm confident that the person, you know, that I believe is where my success comes from will fill that gap in.
Yeah, that was funny you said that, because you know, understanding that you're a Christian woman, how has your faith helped you in entrepreneurship? Do you lean on it a lot? Yeah.
I always joke with my leaders in our group chat. I'll say, like, I don't know how anybody does this business without Jesus. No, and I say it as a joke, but I mean, every day, right? You could get one phone call, see one comment on Instagram, have one person tell you no in Target, or, you know, get one letter that says you didn't get accepted to a program that you really want to be a part of. There's so many ups and downs in just a day that if you built your entire life around the emotions that are in those experiences, you would be screwed.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's finding something to anchor yourself to, you know, finding those beliefs, finding that place of calmness and reassurance. For me, it's that surrendering of just overall life. You know, it's not even just my business. You know, I always talk about how children were one of the things that really strengthened my relationship with Christ, and that was because work, a lot of times I can control the outcome. You know, if I work hard enough, I can control it to a certain extent. But when it came to Parker, baby, you know, like, your child, he's gonna do what he wants to do. You know, kids wake up when they want to, they ready to eat when they want to, they're gonna run and fuss when they want to. And so it teaches you that you can find perfection and imperfection when you just let go. And so though that's been the biggest thing, is just like the grace, you know, that he gives me, I give myself now. And, you know, I can't even imagine doing life without having that anchor.
So what do you say to people who don't have enough money and want to start their own business?
Well, I think that there are a lot of businesses out there that do not require a lot of initial capital. So the lesson that I've learned in that is, say you may have a goal or a business that does take upfront capital. What are some things that you could be doing right now that create passive income that can then be funded into that, right? So if you look at my direct sales business, for example, it's been the resource for me taking that capital to fund things that do require capital. But on this end, it only took $99 to make, you know, almost $2 million, right? So that's a good investment.
Amazing.
So I think that there are a lot of things out there that don't require a lot. Most recently, I just co-founded a company called Grammar, which took no real initial investment. You know, it's a service that we found, you know, that was in high demand in the marketplace, and started getting hired out the gate, you know, just to show up, you know. And so a lot of times it's thinking about what are some of the business models that don't take a lot of overhead. Maybe it's teaching the class at General Assembly. Maybe it's teaching an online course, you know, at a platform that already has students. Maybe it's if you do marketing or PR full time, you know, doing some of that stuff on the side, you know, by just providing a service. None of that really takes overhead. You know, maybe you take $500 and invest it into your logo and your website and this and that, and you create income from those side hustles, and then for whatever the bigger business is or the next phase of your business that will require capital, you can then have some self-funding ways to get in front of people, you know, and make other people want to invest as well.
Yeah. So if you had to do it all over again, would you?
Absolutely. I think I just had a conversation with a banker the other day, and she was asking me all of these questions about my experience leaving that industry and, you know, would I do it again? I think that, of course, you know, we can't ever change the past. I think that there are a lot of setbacks that I had that made me, in my experience, what they are now. I think that if I could do it all over again, number one, I would probably be more aggressive with my savings. So I had enough to live 6 months, but I would probably save enough to live like a year or 2 years. You know, so I think that taking on some things where I could, the advice that I just gave, I would have took it myself, because I was working and just saving what I was making, but I could have done some small projects to bring in extra income. I would have done that. So that I really could, you know, focus on something without having to focus on the bottom line so much.
Right.
You know, so I would probably save more aggressively. I would probably pay off my debt before, you know,
at least pay it down.
Yeah, at least pay it down.
Yeah.
You know, before whatever, because I think you have the bills that you live off of, but, you know, if you could just get down to just like those living essentials, that's a great way to start entrepreneurship. And, you know, I think that I probably would have stayed in New York a little bit longer. I think that that is a great environment for an up-and-coming entrepreneur. It's not affordable, but you can make it work. You know, you can live 4 people to an apartment, but the resources, you know, and the conversations and the networking is something that I would have spent more time doing instead of just trying to rush to get down, you know, out of there. I was ready, you know, but even if I would have came to Atlanta and came back there just like with a desire to meet people. I don't even think that I went to a lot of museums and, you know, a lot of because I didn't have time when I was working. You know, I didn't have time to really live that New York life for real. And so if I could go back, I definitely would spend more time networking and building relationships in a city where people thrive off of business. And, you know, but in terms of would I go back to a 9-to-5? No, I wouldn't. You know, I think if the right opportunity came along where I was able to be some type of contractor or, you know, work with like, you know, some amazing company, like if Instagram was like, hey, we want you to come in as a contract worker and help us develop the next phase of da-da-da-da-da, I would probably be like, absolutely. You know, like I don't think there's anything wrong with affiliating yourself with other brands and companies, but I think that where we're going today is all about, you know, creating relationships and partnerships based on your skill set, meeting someone else's, and you creating that work environment in the middle. I don't ever see myself sitting in a cube, you know, like I was, and having to be in front of an Excel spreadsheet any day. But I definitely would love the opportunity to work with some amazing brands and consult some companies and that kind of stuff.
Right, right, okay. So as an avid reader, what are some books that you're currently reading right now?
Well, right now I'm reading 2 books. I'm reading something called Abundance by Lisa Nichols, Living Abundantly.
Third roommate.
Yes, so Lisa is everywhere with me right now. It's funny because my husband thinks that Lisa is in the bed with us, but she is, because she's a very captivating person. I can't believe that I haven't read her books up until this point. But what's interesting is that when I first decided to go into entrepreneurship, I was reading a book called Wishes Fulfilled by Wayne Dyer. That was my guy, and a lot of the things that he talks about was actually what happened in terms of the Lisa book falling, you know, in my lap. So Wayne always talks about, you know, if you feel like a tugging, or if, you know, you feel something pulling you this way, or just like little things in your energy, to follow that, you know. And so I remember it was like, what, 2 weekends ago, I was like, oh, should I read a book tonight or should I watch TV and like watch some Netflix something? And there was a tugging, and I'm not even exaggerating, there was a tugging in my eye that led me to look over on my bookshelf, and it landed on Live Abundantly. First of all, I don't even know how this book got in my house. I don't remember ever purchasing a Lisa Nichols book. I think perhaps my mom bought it, but Alicia had recently been playing with books on a bookshelf, taking them down every day. So now Lisa's book was on the top, and I was like, oh, let's see what this is about, you know. Started reading it, and within the first couple of pages, like, I can't even tell you. Like, you remember?
Yeah, I do.
I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been needing. So definitely loving that. And it was definitely meant for me to read that, because maybe 2 days after I started reading it, one of my good friends, Ashley Fox, she worked at JP with me and now has her own company as well. She came over, was in town, we're catching up. And she's telling me about the spiritual journey that she's on, and, you know, just really being able to create abundance in her life, and, you know, letting go of fear. And as she's talking, I'm like, oh my God, like, she sounds just like the stuff that I've been talking about, you know, in like the book with Lisa. And I later found out that like a lot of the stuff that's been, you know, amazing for her journey came from that book. And so I thought it was no coincidence. But even in that conversation, she introduced me to this book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And so I'm currently reading that, and it's been a game changer as well. I mean, it's deep. You know, it's like one of those books where you got to read the paragraph over and over, because you're like, did I just read that right? And it hits certain parts of your soul where you're just really like, when I talk about putting the mirror up to look at the man in the mirror, like that's what this book has done for me. And so those are the two books that I'm reading right now. You know, when it comes to different books that I'm into, I mean, I'm always looking for a good self-help book or whatever, but I also like some of the classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich. I mentioned Wishes Fulfilled being one of my favorites. There's another book called Grace Not Perfection, which was a game changer for me when it came to motherhood, and just kind of balancing that whole thing. You know, for people in direct sales, there's a book called Get Over Your Damn Self, which was a really, really fun read, but gave me some very direct things to understanding that industry. So those are some of my book recommendations.
So what's next for Alina? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
You'll
still be young though.
How old will I be? How old am I now? 32?
37.
Oh, Jesus. The next 5 years look amazing. I'm already saying that it looks amazing because honestly, I've already started working on the next 5 years right now. So, you know, the first thing people always ask me, well, how long are you going to do It Works? I'm going to be doing It Works until the wheels fall off, okay? So, you know, this is passive income. So whether there are other things that I start to balance in, you know, fine. But as long as I'm still growing, you know, as a person, you know, my thing is I don't ever want to be in anything that I feel like is stunting my growth. And I think that every time I go to an It Works conference or get on a call, I realize that there's so much stuff that I still have not done in this industry in terms of building and coaching. And, you know, I want to make some millionaires with that company. Like, I'm the first on my team to make $1 million, and I want to help other people do the same. So that's number one, is I'm still, you know, taking that to the top. Number two is I also, is my hair messed up?
There you go.
I'm also, like I mentioned, I just, back in November, I launched another company. I'm a co-founder of a company called Grammar, which is a social media concierge service that teaches people how to capture their stories, digitize their stories. So I think that the art of storytelling is a lost art. But so many of us have the platform to do it now through like Instagram stories and stories on Snap and all of that. And so not only do we help brands and influencers and brides capture their moment, we also are rolling out a platform to actually teach people how to tell their story, because we think that that is the direction of where we need to go as people, is just talking more, which is why I've also decided to launch my podcast, because I think that through my stories and the stories of others that I interview, so many people will gain so much knowledge. So if you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button on the Reminder Remedy. And so those are some projects that I'm working on, but I'm also just looking to, you know, hit some life goals. So building my first home, getting out of debt, you know, shout out to Dave Ramsey. You know, get into a place where, you know, I'm finding a healthy routine when it comes to exercise. I found a lifestyle diet-wise. You know, closing up shop with these babies. So, you know, not having to worry about that, you know, and just really honing in on my parenting skills. I think will be, you know, some of the things that I focus on in the next 5 years. It's just kind of that holistic living, and with a big focus on self-care. Right. You know, I think that if there's anything that I have learned from entrepreneurship, is that it will wear and tear your body. You know, like no sleep, constantly going, stress, knots in stomach, you know, running. It's not a sustainable lifestyle. Will it bring you some success? Yes, but limited success. And so that's what the last 5 years have taught me, is that there are a lot of lessons, there are a lot of sacrifices, but, you know, still remembering, you know, your true values, taking time for yourself so that you can perform at 100 for other people. You know, like I can be a better wife, a better mom, a better coach when Alina is good. And so, you know, investing in that therapy, getting in, you know, the mom groups and the small groups at church to keep you centered, is going to be at the forefront of the next 5 years for me. So thanks for the combo.
Good. Well, congratulations on 5 years as an entrepreneur. I'm just extremely happy and proud of you. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing you flourish even more.
Thank you. This was great.
Yes.